in Game 2 between Edie Kassis and Richard Zhang on Sultai Control, which I know some people were hailing as the answer to Four Color Ramp. We'll put that into the test here, see if Richard Zhang can close this one out. And judging by the state of this game, I'm not sure that's going to happen here, Emma.
Who knows what's going to happen? Honestly, there's so much happening on this battlefield. There are sharks, there are Uros on both sides. Just sharks all the way down, truly.
And I feel like we've seen this one before, Emma, with the hands and the change and the animation. I'm getting a sense of deja vu.
Standard card, Reign of Revelation, spotted in Richard Zhang's hand. Big fan of that card in Modern Horizons. Nice to see it making its standard debut here.
Sometimes you just gotta sift, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
I saw Zach Allen, famed control mage, was saying that he was trying Dark Bargain in Sultai before someone alerted him to the fact that Reign of Revelation exists and was actually a significant upgrade over that card instead.
I can't lie, I was a little surprised to see it in the Magic Arena client.
So here is Escape to the Wilds, triggering Shark Typhoon. Not a phrase I really expected to utter on coverage today. But Edie Kassis, someone who can always surprise you. And here's Reign of Revelation in response, Richard Zhang, picking up a second copy of Mystical Dispute. And you're seeing here how Mystical Dispute is very time-limited in its effectiveness, where if you get to tag an early Omnath with that card, you get to use it in a crucial early exchange to force your spell through. It is the best card you could ask for, but you get into these protracted games like this, where it just rots in your hand, not really doing anything.
Yeah, it's just, how do you even create a game where that gets you more value than being the piece you discard to your Reign of Revelation? Yeah,
I don't think we're going to find an answer to that in this game. Richard Zhang does have a game to give here, so we will be going to a game 3 if Edie Kassis manages to force that, which, with the help of this Kenrith, is looking even more likely.
Yeah, looking like it's good odds.
Great timing there for that call, as we do move to game 3 here between Edie Kassis and Richard Zhang. And going forward, if you're looking to trade your cards into Star City games, you can get a 30% trade-in bonus. And that's on things ranging from singles, seal product, large collections, or just the bulk that you have lying around. Interested in all of that. So go to StarCityGames.com if that's what you're interested in. If you're interested in seeing if anyone can dethrone this Omnath menace, for Sultai Control, what recipe do they have to do that in these post-Cyborg games?
Counter their spells.
Is that it? Is that simple, Emma?
So that's a lot of what people are doing in their Sultai and Dimir control decks right now. And what we've seen, even some of the Omnath players kind of lean into a bit more, is just playing a bunch of negates, a bunch of mystical disputes, these things that are actually able to counter the real power plays, right? Things like Omnath might be the catapult that launch you into being able to cast a ton of spells, but it's the Escape to the Wilds and the Genesis ultimatums that are actually producing enough game-winning threats at the same time. So being able to check those spells is a recipe for success.
And that's the answer that Julian Felix Fleury arrived at and used it to take down yesterday's tournament to make his way into this one, where if you can just be the controlling deck that can also gain a mana advantage through those ramp spells that define the deck, then that's a great setup to bring to the table. And interestingly, Fleury had 2 copies of Field of Ruin to deal with exactly Crawling Barons out of the Dimir control deck that was getting some press at the time. Did not face that, I believe faced that deck once in the tournament, beat it anyway. I was able to take the tournament down. Has cut those 4 today, not expecting to see that. Kassis has still brought those to the table, and we see both copies of Field of Ruin in his hand here, threatening to muck up his mana base.
Yeah, it's also just a really nice way to ensure that you can get extra land drops with Omnath in the later turns of the game.
Yeah, can sometimes impede casting Omnath in the first place, but Kassis, it looks like he's going to have both enough time and enough other lands to make that happen regardless.
Right, the idea here is largely that you aren't planning to slam Omnath on turn 4 in these blue mirrors anyway, so if you're planning to sculpt a longer game around it, having these sort of free resources that help you play these counter games against cards like Mystical Dispute is a great place to be.
And this is an interesting line from Richard Zhang, who has an Agonizing Remorse that could have been cast on this turn, decides to hold up Neutralize instead, maybe thinking that if Kassis has something like Dispute for the Agonizing Remorse into a threat, then his shields are now down, and Kassis can force that through. So Zhang playing a more patient game here. And look at this, you see the oops emote, he now does not have double blue to hold up that Neutralize.
Oh,
so if Kassis has that threat, we still have that window here. But it looks like it's just going to be another Field of Ruin and another pass of the turn.
Oh, do you think that was actually just a level where Kassis said, I'm not falling for that Mystical Dispute. You didn't fetch a 1 blue and oops a bunch on purpose. Or accidentally.
It is a telegraph, shall we say, at that point. And now here's Agonizing Remorse with 3 mana to pay for a potential dispute from Kassis' side. And so Kassis just kind of has to let that one resolve. Triumph being cycled for Kassis end of turn, still gets to use his mana effectively. And another copy of Shark Typhoon to replace the one that was so agonizingly taken away.
And we saw last game how quickly that card can run away with things. There aren't a ton of answers to it in these decks. So even hard casting it is very real if you can find a window to do so.
And Shark Typhoon has always been the best threat to have in these interactive mirrors. When the game slowed down, both players have a bunch of counter spells. Having this uncounterable instant speed threat is just the perfect setup. That replaces itself even. That's the perfect setup to play that style of game.
And we see Kassis edging closer and closer to the phase of the game where you just slam a threat every single turn until they die.
Field of Ruin actually making it a lot harder to cast Omnath with Mystical Dispute back up here. But we're going to attempt that line anyway. We do have Fable Passage to cast one of these disputes.
And here's the spot where fetching that green source is going to come back to bite Richard Zhang, because now being able to cast, say, a dispute and a neutralize in the same turn is a taller order than you want it to be on 6 lands.
Yeah, or if let's say we draw an Uro, we can't cast that and hold up our neutralize.
Ugh.
There's Rain of Revelation, which can let Zhang sift through and improve his draw a little. But negate off the top for Kassis, a perfect answer to that, or to really anything else in this matchup. And there is Uro for Ili Kassis. Enjoy that one while you still can, people, if there's still anything left to enjoy about it.
And really, we're reaching the point of the game where outside of the card Xerath, there just aren't a ton of cards that Zhang can actually punish Kassis for even tapping out for.
And the Shark connects for 2, which right now is easy to ignore that. Richard Zhang is still at 15 life after this attack set, but give it 2 or 3 more turns, and that starts to look like a serious threat, especially if Kassis can find another Shark Typhoon, or he can stick an Omnath or an Uro. That damage can really add up here.
This is a weird spot where finding an island off the top is kind of nice for Zhang, but Zhang doesn't have multiple blue spells anymore and is starting to flood a little bit. And with Rain of Revelation being tagged by a Mystical Dispute from Kassis a moment ago, Zhang's just not really able to snowball much of an advantage at this point.
And it turns out that Omnath actually is a better draw spell in some ways than Rain of Revelation. A big shock, I know, but
in some ways, a little debatable, but you know, you live your life, I guess.
Hagra Mauling does get to threaten to take down the Uro, but Ili Kassis can fight over this. We have Negate and Mystical Dispute if we're interested in forcing this through.
But look at this. Kassis can just make multiple landfall triggers right now.
Right, in response to the Hagra Mauling. Decides to let that one go, and that's fine. He's happy either winning that fight or losing that fight. So now, Kassis gets to pass a turn with Double Dispute, with Negate. Next turn, he can try and just play another Omnath, play an Uro, and even if he loses that fight, even if both players exchange all their cards, there's an Ugin in reserve to just slam the door shut.
Right, this whole game feels like it's just been dictated by Kassis trying to keep Zhang off of being able to cast that incredibly punishing Trickster, and otherwise being happy to just kind of sit back on his laurels and say, all right, if you can't cast that, nothing else really matters or is going to kill me.
So here is Omnath once again. I wonder if the animation for Omnath, how long it would take to become just as iconic as the Uro one.
It never will.
This one at least is a little more brief.
It just doesn't have the same slorp to it, you know?
So there's Negate on the Heartless Act that threatens to not even trade with the Omnath, but just delay the inevitable, almost. And if you're Kassis, do you have any interest in just tagging this Reign of Revelation with a Mystical Dispute?
Absolutely. There's a point where Zhang is just so low on cards. Keeping that the same is great for you.
I don't know what card Richard Zhang could even find with the Reign of Revelation to fight his way back into this game.
Yeah, because you want to say, a way to deal with this Omnath, maybe a way to tag the Ugin, but with this pile of Mystical Disputes, Kassis can seriously tax Zhang's mana.
Normally, you'd be looking at something like his own copy of Ugin for Richard Zhang, but no Ugins in the 75 for him, and no card that can really flip the tables on the game in quite the same way. So if Kassis gets out to an advantage, which I think it's safe to say he has at this point, there's no big finish that Zhang can work towards that can flip the script in his favor.
Well, so there are a bunch of reactive cards off the top for Zhang. But he's just so far behind here.
Maybe if he finds a way to stick an Uro and protect it with interaction, but that doesn't look all that likely at this point either. We have Solemnity Vision, which offers a measure of card selection, but again, what is he really hoping to find with it? You can look at 6 cards, but if none of those actually accomplish anything in this board state, then what have you done with that?
Right, and there are so many things that Kassis is going to force Zhang to have to answer this following turn.
Oh, and look at this. We get to Crowd Evolving Wilds. For a tap land, we are now fully tapped out, but Omnath will give some mana here. Or just 4 life, I guess, on the way out. Don't even need to try and protect that one.
Allow me to introduce you to my good friend Uro.
No need to even land Ugin the Spirit Dragon with Richard Zhang tapped out. We can just play Uro with Double Dispute and Negate back up instead.
Yeah, this is a spot where Uro closes the door a good bit faster. And on top of that, Ugin just isn't that great when you're ahead. It's a reasonable catch-up card, but it kind of is just a 3/3 attacker every turn, right? Whenever you're trying to apply pressure, drawing 7 is a means to an end, right? It's not that the ultimate does nothing, but Kassis is pretty interested in just closing the door at this point. There's also a level of, look at how many counter spells are in Kassis' hand. Why would you ever take those shields down?
One of my favorite developments in Magic recently is the kind of Goblin Charbelcher-esque Balustrade Spy decks in larger formats like Modern Legacy, where on Magic Online, you play your card, you mill your entire deck or whatever, and then the client says, look at the cards. That's it. Just it orders you, look at the cards. And that's what I feel like Zhang is experiencing right now. It's just look at the cards. Like the board state speaks for itself here. And this is a kind of game from Kassis which makes you wonder, why would anyone believe that Solar Control is the foil to these decks? And there are games you can watch where you see why that is, where Solar Control just effortlessly deals with every spell that comes their way, and then sticks an Uro or sticks something else, and you understand how people reach that conclusion. But when the Omnath deck wins, it wins by such a margin that you understand why 67% of our field today, a full 2/3 of this tournament, decided to register it.
Yeah, the problem is that the games you win feel close and the games you lose don't. if you're
Right.
on the side of not Omnath.
And ultimately, if you're still not winning that many more games than you're losing, that doesn't matter. The win percentage is what's important, and so you don't get extra credit for winning by a bigger margin. But psychologically, it is dispiriting to